Hi, I'm Joel Willits. I'm the professor for the two courses that are kind of combined into one on Galatians. We have a master's course that's titled Studies in Galatians and Early Judaism, and an undergraduate course called Galatians in Jewish Context. And those titles are actually really important because it does kind of capture what this course is going to be about. We're going to look at Galatians afresh in its first century uh, early Jewish context. Now, what I'm hoping to do in this first installment of something of a lecture, this really isn't a lecture at all, but this first video is to introduce myself, just give you a bit of a flavor, a sense of who Joel Willits is and what I'm bringing to the course, and whenever you start a course, there's always that question of who is this professor, and in particular, I don't know about you, but I have not had a lot of experience with this online kind of education where we're actually not going to be in a classroom. We're just kind of communicating via the web, and I'll be trying to kind of communicate something of my passion and my own reflection on Galatians through these videos. And so I just thought it'd be really good just to kind of give you something of an orientation to me as we begin. We will start in earnest in our first week with lectures on approaches to Galatians, on kind of a theological reading, what that means, and looking at the kind of the context, the circumstances, historically speaking, that created the issues which Paul felt he had to write a letter to address, which is the letter of Galatians written to churches in Galatia. Something was going on there that Paul felt it necessary to communicate. So that'll be week one. But in this very brief video, I just wanted to kind of give you a flavor for who I am. And so, again, my name is Joel, and I originally grew up on the East Coast in the state of New Jersey. I lived in New Jersey from birth till about 13. Grew up in Central Jersey, and so sometimes my Jersey accent will come out, although it's certainly not all that dominant in my vocabulary, but occasionally my kids make fun of the way I say some words because they're growing up here now in the Midwest, and we Jersey folk, we talk differently sometimes. But when I was 13, my mom moved us to Florida. My two sisters and I. After a divorce, we moved to Florida, and so I did kind of 8th grade and high school in Florida until I went to college in Virginia. And that's where I met my wife, and we've been married. My wife and I have been married 23 years as of this summer. My wife's name's Carla. She's beautiful and awesome, and she can't hear me right now, but I just love her to death, and she loves me and supports me. I've taken her all around the world in my adventurous, passionate heart to kind of pursue the things that I love. So she's been a wonderful partner. She actually has her own career. She's a flight attendant with American Airlines, and so we both have kind of busy lives in our careers. She's often jet setting somewhere either in the U.S. or around the world on a weekend. And during the week, I'm sort of full on teaching. So a little bit more about my family. I was going to transition into my academic career, but I'll come back to that in a moment. But so rounded off my family, I have two amazing kids. They're twins. I have a son named Zion David, and a daughter named Mary Rachel. Zion and Mary Willits. They're 9, and they are just full of life. We are in the thick of the middle of life with young kids and careers and church life and all that stuff. It's very busy. sometimes quite hectic, but just such a privilege, such a blessing to be able to do what it is you love, and do it for the glory of God. In addition to family life, I'm also a professor at North Park University here in Chicago. North Park is a liberal arts Christian university affiliated with a small denomination called the Evangelical Covenant Church. I have been at North Park now 11 years. I'm in my 11th year, which is really hard to believe. But that was my first job out of my PhD, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful setting. I'm also now excited to be inaugurating a relationship with the King's University with this course, and probably be teaching some other things as well. But I'm excited to teach Galatians in this setting that is really a rather unique setting to teach Galatians in, particularly as we think about the New Testament as a Jewish text, and just trying to imagine what it means to read like a letter like Galatians from a Jewish perspective. And I'm just thrilled, and I get to work with my good friend David Rudolph, who you probably know. He's directs the Center for Messianic Jewish Studies there at the King's University, and we met. It's probably been a decade and a half, early 2000s. We met in Cambridge, England. That's where both of us did our PhDs. And so during that very sort of powerful, fruitful, challenging, sometimes very difficult period of time working on a PhD in England, David and I just really grew to be great friends. And in the subsequent years, that's only deepened. And it's been a really fruitful relationship, personally, but also professionally. David and I have worked together on scholarly projects, and are currently involved in scholarly work together. You might know of one of our books we edited together, An Introduction to Messianic Judaism, that I think is just a fantastic piece of work, probably least because I'm involved in it, but just because of the people we got to join us in that effort. And so just a great piece of work I'm very proud of, and I'm thankful for my friendship with David, that's bearing fruit in my own personal life, but also in my professional life. So I've been at North Park, and I teach some other places as well. But I'm, as I said, I'm super excited about being a part of the King's University program here, that allows me to teach something like Galatians from this very unique perspective. In addition, I am, personally, I enjoy lots of different things outside of teaching and academics. I'm an avid runner. I love running long distances, actually, marathons. And this has not been something that's been characteristic of me all my life. I'm 45, and it's only been like in the last 3 or 4 years, that I sort of discovered this love of running. And not just 3 miles, but there's nothing sort of like being out on a long run where you're at mile like 19, 20, 21. I mean, this is where you just really do feel your body. and I laugh because, yeah, of course, anybody would say, "Wow, that's a long way." And yeah, I mean, who does that? But I have found nothing that has been so grounding as long distance running. I really think of it as a spiritual practice. It has invited me into being more present in my life, to being more in my body, if that makes any sense. I think, as I look back on my life, and as I consider my story, I realize that for a lot of my life, I've kind of lived up in my head. I've intellectualized. I've emotionally been somewhat distant, and that all has really been a kind of a sophisticated, in many cases unconscious survival um, practice, a survival methodology. And I'm trying to re-enter my story, and I'm trying to be more present. And strangely, running has been part of that process for me. Now, so just in saying that, you might get a flavor for a little bit of a broader sense of what I'm about. And I wanted to turn your attention to my new website that I've launched that is very different than sort of academic pursuits. It's called joelwillits.com. The hashtag is open-hearted. And that's really what the theme of the work I want to be doing is open-hearted. I want to be open-hearted. I want to invite people into open-heartedness, and so what's animating my work academically and my work as a follower of Yeshua is this desire to be more authentic, more vulnerable, and to invite others into that vulnerability. So my wife and I launched this new venture earlier this year, and we're kind of it's a soft launch, but love for you to check out that website. If for no other reason, you'll get a broader sense of who I am. You won't find academic jargon on there. It's really an invitation for us to become fully human. I think what the enemy has done brilliantly is fragmented us and dehumanized us, and part of what I think Jesus is doing by His Spirit as we follow Yeshua is rehumanizing us, and bringing us into a deeper sense of presence. And so when I talk about open-hearted, what I mean is this kind of this ability to kind of hold joy and grief together in moments, and to be able to be present and show up with the people that most need us. And that for me goes for my kids and my wife, but also my students and the people that God brings across my path. And so this is also a part of, I guess, who I am, and I really wanted to kind of share that with you as well. These things are not unrelated. My study of Galatians and my desire to be open-hearted, I see them as deeply integrated. Perhaps I'm discovering it. I don't think it certainly wasn't intentional. But when I read Galatians, and I think about my own story, what I see in Galatians is Paul's attempt to cultivate presence and to cultivate an authentic difference between believers ethnically. And ethnic difference is not abstract and theoretical. Ethnic difference is embodied. And so when we read a text like Galatians, and I think about my own story and this open-hearted thing, what kind of comes together for me, this concept that comes together for me, that has really enraptured my imagination and my desire, is to be more embodied. And I think so much of interpretation today of the New Testament, of the Bible, is disembodied, is de-ethnicized, and certainly the way that works out is de-Judaized, a de-Judaization. Can't hardly get that out of the New Testament, and I think what that does is it fragments our humanity, because we are embodied people. And our ethnicities and our stories, more broadly than ethnicity, but certainly including ethnicity, Jesus invites us to bring all of that into relationship with Him and with one another. not so that those unique embodiments get erased or get reduced or diminished, but so that we can together learn sacrificial, Christ-formed laying down our lives for others, so that they can be fully authentic as embodied people in all the particularity and uniqueness that is, and we can be invited into that same kind of embodied particularity. We can bring our stories. The ethics of Galatians is an invitation to embrace the other in their full embodiment. It is follow this though. It is an invitation on the point of ethnic difference to embrace fully the ethnic other as essential to what it means to be in community around Messiah Yeshua. And so Paul's desire and heart is that the Galatian believers, but primarily the Gentile believers, because this is primarily a Gentile audience, but that the Gentile audience would see that God loves them as Gentiles, as non-Jews, and he honors and blesses their bodies, their flesh as non-Jews. And he wants them to come alongside the Jewish flesh within the body of Christ, because God blesses and honors that. And together, as those unique, different fleshes live out embodiment culturally, in patterns of living, in ways of being in the world, that they would submit themselves to one another in love, so that the other can be fostered and so that the other can be cultivated. And there's a beauty in that. There's a beauty in that vision, isn't there? I think it's amazingly beautiful. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not a least common denominator call. What it is, it's a call to be fully embodied in all the particularity that means, and to love in the cross-shaped way of Jesus, the other. Well, I think I went a little longer than I had planned. I'm sorry, I guess, but I hope you get a flavor though for who I am. I hope you have a sense of what I'm bringing to this course. And so when we read Galatians, I don't want us to leave our bodies out. I'm not sure exactly what that's going to mean for you. Maybe it'll be something we think about as we walk forward. But if we get anything out of this letter, is that we need to show up in our full-bodied particularity, and allow ourselves to be invited into love, and to open our hearts to loving the other, who is not like us, without judgment and forcing them to into the shape of our own patterns. Yeah, I think that's probably enough for this first session. I hope that all made sense, and that you feel encouraged and invited into this course and this journey together as we proceed. Have a great week, and I look forward to more interactions with you in the future.